Hey guys, it's Eat the Geek, and after 2 weeks of using the Trick Room and Sand team, our review and comparison is finally here. Now, we've been using both these teams for 2 weeks simply because it's 2 teams, so I guess each team gets a week, but then because we were doing them at the same time, each team only got 1 battle an episode, sort of evened it out. Now, both these teams did just absolutely amazing. I'm not sure how many teams we've had with this amazing of records, but I'm going to go in and quickly review both teams and all the Pokemon individually and how they did. So let's just go right into this. Now, the first team is the Trick Room team. Now, the majority of you said that you thought the Trick Room team was the most powerful and your favorite, and I understand why. Just it was the most powerful and it was very, very effective at what it did. So, as you can see, the 6 that I chose were Mega Mawile, Cresselia, Hariyama, Azumarill, Heatran, and Dragalge. Now, it's pretty standard. Cresselia, obviously, on almost all Trick Room teams. Mega Mawile is one of the best Trick Room Pokemon, and Azumarill, Heatran, Hariyama I've been seen on Trick Room teams as well. And then you have Dragalge, which is very interesting, and I know quite a lot of you enjoyed that. But we're going to go ahead and just individually review each one. So starting off with Mega Mawile, obviously I was thinking I want a Trick Room team, but I had 2 choices between Megas. Mega Abomasnow and Mega Mawile. Those, in my opinion, are the 2 best Trick Room team Pokemon. Mega Camerupt is a possibility, but in my opinion, it's not that good, especially when Heatran can do almost the exact same thing. Now, I ended up choosing Mega Mawile simply because, in my opinion, it is a bit better. Mega Abomasnow has way too many weaknesses, and it kind of gets beat when just by Heatran straight up. Mega Mawile also had Sucker Punch, which was very nice priority, and just the fact that it could hit so hard and was so deadly in Trick Room, I really liked it. It's also had very good coverage with Iron Head, Play Rough, and Sucker Punch being able to destroy a lot of things. Obviously, its 4th move is Protect, because why not have Protect on it? And it was just able to pick up tons of Okos, and I really liked it. There wasn't much that lived hits from this unless there were some super bulky Pokemon, but then it normally couldn't do much to me. I did have to be careful of things like Heatran because that was a potential threat to Mega Mawile, but my team was built very well around Mega Mawile, and Mega Mawile was just able to put in a lot of work, so I ended up going with it. Now, our next Pokemon is Cresselia. Cresselia was very big. Of course, it's the Trick Room setter, so it's almost like the star. While it doesn't pick up too many knockouts, without Cresselia, this team is nothing. It provided good support. Of course, Trick Room being its main form of support, if you want to say, because without the Trick Room, this team would be destroyed. But it also had things like Helping Hand, which were just very useful for ensuring that you pick up the knockout when I'm unsure. Also, there were some times where I wouldn't go for a Helping Hand and I wouldn't pick up a knockout. I realized, dang, this is really where I need to use that Helping Hand knockout. But the good support Cresselia provided was very nice. It also just had 2 moves that were very good. Yes, Cresselia didn't have much special attack, because I didn't invest any into it, but it was still able to pick up knockouts using Ice Beam onto things like Lando T, which were a bit annoying for me to go against, and also Psychic for those Amoonguss. And again, speaking of Amoonguss was a huge threat to this team, so I did end up going with the safety goggles on Cresselia. Cresselia is probably one of the bulkiest Trick Room setters out there, and that's why I went with it. There aren't too many things that can really destroy this, and getting Fake Out support from Hariyama, which I'll go over later, really allowed Cresselia to almost always get the Trick Room up. Now, during the early parts of this team, I did use Mental Herb, but after a while, I noticed that the only thing that was ever really good against me was Amoonguss or Breloom, alongside something like Kangaskhan, which could use Fake Out. So I decided that Safety Goggles was much more beneficial than Mental Herb. And every time I did see a taunt user come out like Thundurus or Gengar, I was just ready for it, and I said, okay, I'm just going to attack. Because an Ice Beam or Psychic onto those 2 Pokemon I just named will pick up a 2 to 3 hit KO almost every time. And then by the time you knock it out, you're so bulky that you're still going to be around, and you get up the Trick Room just a bit later. But it's okay, because then you get the late game sweep, which works just as well. So in the end, taunt was not scary to me. Now the next one is Hariyama. I wanted a Fake Out user that could still provide me great sweeping capabilities once I get the Trick Room up, so I decided I'm not going to go for something fast for the Fake Out like a Raichu or something, but rather something that, yes, it'll be outsped by other Fake Out users, but I don't really care about that. So that's the main purpose Hariyama had. Hariyama Cresselia, the most common lead for me. Hariyama would just fake out Cresselia with Trick Room. It's very predictable, but at the same time is almost impossible to stop. Now sometimes I didn't go for the fake out, and I actually just surprised opponents by going for a knockoff, a rock slide, or close combat, just depending on what they had. And again, those 3 moves provided amazing coverage. The dark type move was very useful because I had no other dark type moves on my team, plus it was nice to knock off occasional items and pick up 2-hit KOs with it. Rock Slide was very good for things like Charizard Y, which can be annoying, especially when it beats Mega Mawile. It can set up the sun to kind of render Azumarill slightly more useless, and so I decided that Rock Slide was very good on Hariyama. And then obviously Close Combat, just because it's the most powerful fighting type move Hariyama gets, and it allowed me to just Oko Kang, which of course if you don't have something to deal with Mega Kangaskhan, you're kind of making your team wrong. And now I know you don't want to just build a team to destroy common threats, but Kangaskhan is something you need to be able to beat. So Hariyama, great coverage. It was bulky enough to be a lead and allow for that first turn Trick Room setup, and it had the fake out, which was very nice. Now our next Pokemon is Azumarill. Many of you might be wondering why I chose Azumarill when we already had Mega Mawile. So maybe if I ran something like Mega Abomasnow, it'd make more sense to run Azumarill, because then it's just that play rough that I was missing. But even with Mega Mawile on the team and Azumarill, the double play rough was actually very fun to use, I have to admit. There aren't too many things that can take that other than Steel, Poison, and Fire types, but then in that case I have Waterfall, and for those Poison and Steel types, I have Hariyama to Close Combat or Mega Mawile just to hit them with a powerful Iron Head, and Heatran could destroy them with Earth Power or Heat Wave, so I was definitely okay with that. I loved having 2 play roughs on this team. It was really nice. Also, yes, they're both fairy types, but Mega Mawile is immune to poison. Azumarill and Mega Mawile both are not weak to steel. So in that sense, having 2 fairy types, but with half water, half steel, they actually had some nice defensive synergy that I really liked. Also, Azumarill hits insanely hard with its choice band. Waterfall or Play Rough can pick up tons of knockouts really easily. Also, that priority Aqua Jet was very useful in those late game situations when my Trick Room is expired and it's like a 2-on-1 or 1-on-1 situation, and Azumarill is just there to clean up the game very easily. Also, I really needed a slow water type, and Azumarill just looked the best to me, so I decided to choose it. Also, it did have the superpower because it was choice banded and I didn't have Protect on that last spot. I did put superpower in the end just because I wanted another check to Kangaskhan, because you can never have enough. Plus, superpower was useful for things maybe like Tyranitar or just nice coverage in general. Now, our next Pokemon is Heatran. Heatran was not brought that often, I have to admit, but it was definitely nice when I did bring it. It's a huge counter to Amoonguss, and yes, Cresselia could deal with it fairly well, but if I have Heatran behind a sub, that Amoonguss can't do anything to me. So Heatran without the Trick Room was very useful, but even in Trick Room, if they didn't have Amoonguss, then it was still very great. It provided great defensive synergy, and that was one of the main reasons for using it. It resisted many things that I needed to resist, and that is why I ended up choosing it. Now, it did have a huge ground weakness, which I really didn't want to add because I have Dragalge, Heatran, and Mawile all weak to ground, so I did end up putting the Shuka Berry on. So, Shuka Berry I chose over Chople Berry, which is mainly because I wasn't too scared of fighting type moves having Azumarill, Mawile, Cresselia, and Dragalge. I'm not scared of fighting type moves at all, so I thought Shuka Berry was the better bet to go with. Plus, because I'm max HP, max special attack, having that max HP with Shuka Berry pretty much allows me to live almost anything. Again, I didn't bring it too often, but towards the end I started to use it a bit more, and it was very nice with its defensive synergy overall. Plus, Heat Wave and Earth Power hit very hard, and being behind a substitute in Trick Room, this thing is also another threat. Now our last one is the awesome Dragalge. Many of you love this. I love it. I brought it a fairly decent amount, and let's just start talking about it. Dragalge is super unique. People don't really know what to expect from it. They have never calced moves from it, so they don't know how hard it's gonna hit. But it's insanely powerful. Adaptability, stab, that Draco Meteor plus Sludge Bomb picked up insane amount of knockouts and even provided tons of 2-hit KOs. It was very powerful. Also, I needed kind of a Dragon Poison type. I noticed those were 2 typings that I really wanted to add to the team, and the only way I could get that was from Dragalge. The main thing that I started looking for was a slow dragon type, because I really liked the dragon type. I already had a fairy and steel, so I was thinking I just want to complete that fairy steel dragon core, right? Because it's a core and it's nice. I saw Dragalge, and at first I was thinking, ooh, that's a really good typing dragon. Poison, it fits well, but there was two things that were making me kind of detour away from it. The fact that it was a poison type meant it had a ground weakness, which I really didn't like. The second thing was Dragalge's never really used, and it's honestly not that great, so I was thinking, why would I want to use it? After using it though, I'm very happy I chose it because it actually was very good, surprisingly. I did start with Scald on it, later I switched it for Dragon Pulse, but now that I'm thinking about it, I want to put Scald back on it because Steel types wall it, and I kind of need to put Scald back on. But other than that, it was the slowest dragon I could find, and it fit well on a Trick Room team. Its typing was perfect, and I'm happy that I was able to get it to be able to work, because it's a very unique and cool Pokemon. Alrighty, now we're moving on to the Sand team. The Trick Room team, I hope you guys liked it. Go ahead and copy it if you want to. If you want to know their sets, you can probably go all the way back to my first live VGC with using these teams. Other than that, they're pretty standard 252, 252 sets in HP, and then whatever kind of attacker they are. But moving on to the next team, the Sand team. A very good team. It only lost twice, and that was both the Perish Song teams that were kind of my fault because I don't know how to go against them. Now, I was inspired to use this team by Aaron Cybertron Zhang. As you can see, that Tyranitar, Excadrill, Salamence, and Amoonguss are all identical to his team. And then I chose Azumarill and Thundurus simply because Aegislash, I don't know why, I can't get it to work. I'm just terrible using it. I'm not too bad at going against it anymore, but when it comes to me using it, I just can't do it. I'm not good at it. And then I really wanted to use Azumarill instead of Rotom Wash, just because I was kind of tired of using Rotom Wash, and I was just in a Azumarill mood. So I ended up choosing Azumarill and Thundurus over Rotom Wash and Aegislash. Now, going into the first Pokemon, obviously it's Tyranitar. It's the best Sand setter in the game. There's no point of running something like Hippowdon, which is not nearly as good. And I put a Choice Scarf onto Tyranitar simply because I think Scarf Tyranitar is probably the best Tyranitar. It's fast, it's very nice offensive pressure at the beginning of the game, and it was just very useful because Tyranitar has has a really big move pool, and that's why with Choice Scarf it was very great. And again, that huge move pool just provided tons of coverage, which was very nice to have on this team. The one thing that I don't really like about Tyranitar is its speed. At max speed, it was 124, and then plus the Scarf, so that cuts to, let me do that math real quick, 186 speed. So thinking about that, I do outspeed the majority of Pokemon, but other Choice Scarf users will outspeed me, and fast Pokemon like Mega Gengar or something, or Mega Lopunny could also outspeed me, so that was a problem. But later you're going to see that I had a solution to it. But one of the best things about Choice Scarf Tyranitar is the Rock Slide spam. Also having Excadrill that could Rock Slide spam, it was fun. If you had the opportunity to do it, definitely do it. It's awesome. You have a high flinch chance, and it does tons of damage because it's stab, so really nice. Tyranitar gets probably one of the most powerful Rock Slides in the game, so definitely like that. Next is the Excadrill. Obviously, I chose Excadrill because it's Sand Rush and it's for the sand. Why wouldn't you pick it? It's the best Sand Rush Pokemon out there, and its typing is very useful. It had Focus Sash because there's no other item that really fits better. Excadrill is frail, so you either want it going first and wiping the field, but you already have that from the Sand Rush, so you might as well put a Focus Sash just in case you take a hit so you can take another one. It dished out mad damage. Earthquake, Rock Slide, and Iron Head covered so much that I really enjoyed it, and it was very powerful. Our next Pokemon is going to be Mega Salamence, but before I move on to it, Excadrill and Mega Salamence are also very good next to each other. A lot of the time you would just lead Tyranitar Excadrill, and If you needed to Earthquake, you could just switch out Tyranitar into Megaments. Excadrill Earthquakes does tons of damage. Mega Salamence won't take damage the next turn. You can freely Earthquake again, or you can go for other moves like Iron Head to take out any Fairy types that are thinking they can beat Megaments. So honestly, these two were very good next to each other. And that leads us to the Mega Salamence. Mega Salamence again just has great synergy with Tyranitar and Excadrill. Being a flying type, it covers the majority of their weaknesses, being grass and fighting, two of the main ones. And it was very nice to have Mega Salamence. Also, the special Mega Salamence just provides tons of coverage. I had Flamethrower, Dragon Pulse, not Draco Meteor, and Hyper Voice. I didn't choose to go with Draco Meteor because once I use Draco Meteor, I'm forced to switch, and I didn't like that. While Dragon Pulse I could use, and then maybe next turn go for a Hyper Voice and pick up some knockouts as well. Next to Amoonguss, this thing was very deadly. Rage Powder is very nice, and it was just an awesome Pokemon to use. Mega Salamence, one of my favorites. I will always enjoy using it, and I got many sweeps with it and Amoonguss. So that leads us to the Amoonguss. Amoonguss is very good, tons of great support, it's very bulky, and Spore and Rage Powder are just so deadly, especially alongside maybe Excadrill, Mega Salamence, or as my Azumarill enjoyed being next to this thing in one of my battles. And honestly, Amoonguss is just it's a threat. I hate going against it, but I love using it because it's just so good. Honestly, if you don't know how to go against Amoonguss, if you don't have a way of beating it, you're kind of in trouble. But I did because I have my own Amoonguss, and I have a Mega Salamence that can beat other Amoonguss, so I was ready for it. Overall, it was definitely a threat, and every time I got a sweep, it was because I had Amoonguss there. Going on to our next Pokemon is the Azumarill. Azumarill is definitely a very interesting choice. It was more because it was fun than anything why I chose it. There was really no real reason that I chose it. I just really felt like using Choice Band Azumarill. I wanted a Fairy type. I definitely know that because I already had the Steel Dragon and all I needed was a Fairy for the synergy. I easily could have chose Sylveon, but Sylveon was just kind of boring and overused. That I decided I'm just going to use Azumarill because it hits hard and it hits on the physical side, which I wanted to keep my ratio 3-3 as I did in the end, so I ended up choosing Azumarill. Now, I could have chose Sylveon simply because that double Hyper Voice was a huge threat to anybody, but I didn't want to rely that much on spread moves just because Wide Guard can kind of destroy me. Excadrill has Earthquake and Rock Slide, Tyranitar has Rock Slide, Mega Salamence has Hyper Voice. All these spread moves would have been a bit much. A Wide Guard could have definitely shut down my team, so Azumarill was definitely a nice bring. I didn't bring it often, that's definitely for sure. The majority of the time I brought Tyranitar, Excadrill, Mega Salamence, and Amoonguss because they are the best. There was no point of really bringing Azumarill and Thundurus too often, but when I did bring them, it was because they fit really well against my opponent's team, but otherwise they'd just be sitting in the back doing nothing. But occasionally, like I said, it could be a threat, and next to Amoonguss, it did have some great power as well, so definitely fun Pokemon to use. Our next one is Thundurus Incarnate, and I originally had a Cresselia which did absolutely nothing and was garbage, so I got rid of it because there was no reason to have it. I didn't even know why I had it. I know it had Ice Beam, which was useful for Landos, but then later I realized Thundurus can pretty much have the same role and provide that speed control that Tyranitar kinda needed. I know it was Scarf, but at the same time, I needed to outspeed things that I couldn't outspeed without the Thundurus. So Thundurus was really great for the offensive pressure and speed control just because T-Wave shuts down things. And not only that, but I chose a fully offensive Life Orb, max speed, max special attack. I think I was modest, I believe so. And I rarely brought this thing, especially because I only really used it in the final 3 battles with this team, but when I did bring it, it was very nice because a Thunderbolt from this thing with max special attack Life Orb picks up a ton of damage, and it really can surprise people, especially because they expect you to be really slow. You hit them very hard at the beginning of the turn, and then maybe next turn they're like, oh crap, I'm dead, or I sack something off. That's a bummer. It honestly just provided more than Cresselia did, so I ended up choosing it. But again, I didn't bring it too often because Mega Salamence, Amoonguss, Tyranitar, Excadrill were the stars and brought them most often. So now, going on to the comparison of both of these teams. Both teams were very good, but as you can see, the Trick Room kind of finished better. 7-0, amazing. I don't think we've ever had a team do that well in our live VGC sessions, but it was definitely great. Now, I did lose occasionally off screen when I was testing both teams, but I think both teams lost and won about the same amount off screen, so don't worry about that. But every time Trick Room did lose, it was because of Breloom or Amoongus. Spore was a problem, but once I put the safety goggles, I haven't lost with this team, so yeah, definitely liking that. Sand finished 5-2. Both of those losses were our first 2 games, I believe. And they were both against Parish Song teams. So this team did start out 0-2, but then afterwards I figured out how to use it and I started to win with it. I did beat a Parish Trap team later on off screen with it, so I did prove that I learned how to use it and beat other Parish Trap teams. So that was very good. Both teams got tons of sweeps, which was really awesome. Trick Room, of course, its main goal is to set up Trick Room and sweep, and then the Sand is mainly maybe you sweep with Tyranitar Excadrill or you sweep with Salamence Amoonguss. Otherwise, you just have a good game and they do well. But in the end, I have to say the Trick Room team had better numbers, and not only that, it was a lot easier to win with it. So, in conclusion, other than Amoonguss and failing to get out the Trick Room team was unbeatable. Every time I got the Trick Room up and they didn't have an Amoonguss, I was guaranteed to win. I never lost at that point. If they did have an Amoonguss, it was always a harder match, but I was able to win just because I was so used to going against Amoonguss with this team, because every time I saw an Amoonguss on the opponent's team, I knew they were bringing it, and I was ready for it because I had gone against it so many times. I rarely failed to get the Trick Room up. That's just because I made this team 100% Trick Room, and I made sure I would never fail to get it up just because I had Fake Out, I had safety goggles. The only way I could be stopped is from a taunt, but most of the Pokemon that carried taunt I was not scared of. I was like, okay, I'll just sit here with my bulk and let this taunt eventually go away so I can set up the Trick Room later. And the team was very good. The Sand team was also very powerful. Its spread moves were super deadly for Pokemon that didn't have Wide Guard, but even then I had powerful single target attacks, and it was a very standard team, no really interesting spreads, but it was able to hit very hard. But it was a pretty common team, like I said. Cybertron VGC did use it, so although slightly different. But people kind of realized what it was about. Seeing Mega Salamence on a Sand team, the majority of the time they tend to be special, just because it's probably best that way, and so people tended to get Wide Guards off without ever seeing me go for Hyper Voice at first, and then they nail the Wide Guard right into my Hyper Voice, so that was a problem. But other than that, the team was very good, although kind of predictable in a way because it was common, but it had so many different things and win conditions that I definitely liked it. But in the end, the Trick Room team was the best. It was probably the most interesting, but the Sand team was a very fun team to use, and I'm thinking about using both teams again later in the future. Or they'll probably show up in replays once in a while, and maybe the Trick Room team will get its own live VGC week. If you guys ever want to see these two teams again, just tell me, and we'll see what we can do. So, other than that, guys, thank you for watching so much. Please leave a like on this video if you guys enjoy, because your support is greatly appreciated. But not only that, subscribe because I'll continue to post daily, and goodbye.